Welcome back to Pre-Algebra Chapter 8, Section 1 in this book. And some of you are going, what? What happened to Chapter 7? Which ones did I skip? 7.5, 7.6, 7.7. Remember I told you this book tries to teach you stuff that really isn't pre-algebra? Those are. I want you to get really good at the is, of, percent 100 equation. I want you to use it every single time. And later on, when you're in Algebra 1 and Algebra 2, we can talk about other situations with percent. But right now, I want you to practice the one we know until you're really good at it. So that's where that went. Okay, so now we are to Chapter 8, and we're going to be talking about that there are going to be number sentences. They have an X and a Y, and an equal sign. And so there's a relationship, and you can graph them. Okay? And that's what we're going to be doing this whole chapter. Now, this used to not be part of pre-algebra. And it wasn't when I was your age, it wasn't in the 90s when I was teaching, but in the 2000s I was tutoring, and in Georgia, kids would have to pass this math test to be able to move from 8th grade to 9th grade. And there it was. And I was just like, what? And I was tutoring this girl, and she had failed that test. She wasn't going to be able to move on until she understood this, because they've moved this to pre-algebra. The reason why is because Algebra 1 is the most failed class in high school. And there are people who take it over and over again and then drop out of school. So Algebra 1 is a dream killer. And the better pre-algebra you have, the more success you will have in Algebra 1. If you can do everything I'm teaching you in this pre-algebra, it's going to be golden. You're going to do great. You're going to already know most of it. All right. So what did I do with my marker? I lost it. That's what I did with it. Oh, here it is. Okay. So relations and functions. I already said this is the relationship. It has y, it has x, and an equal. And now we're going to talk about that you can graph these things, and then we're going to talk about, is it a function? And I'll explain what I mean. All right. So you will have some points that you put on graph. You need to buy graph paper. You need a ruler. And you need colored pencils. Will all help. And I got some really cool mechanical colored pencils at Dollar Tree, of all places. All right, so you'll have some points to graph. So my points that I have right here are 0, 2. Sometimes they're written like this. The first one is the X, the second one is the Y. It's in alphabetical order. It took me a long time to figure that out. You draw a bold up and down line, that's your y-axis. You draw a bold horizontal line, that's your x-axis. And how you put this point on that graph is, this is the number line. So this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5, negative 6. We're used to using that. Well, now we're adding the y-axis, and it goes the same way. This is still the origin. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We'll put a 5 up there. And these are negative. Negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5. To graph this, I go to x is 0, so I don't go up or back. I stay right here on the origin. y2, I go up 2 and put a dot. Now I'm going to do, and this is another way of writing that same thing. The x is 0, the y is 2. Now I'm going to do this one. X is 1, so I go over to 1. Y is 5, I go up to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, put a dot. And then I can draw this as a line. And of course, you would do it all neat. You would do it on graph paper, not messy lines like mine. And you would use a ruler to draw your line. And we did it. We drew a line on graph paper. Yay! Okay. Now, these X's are also called domain or inputs. The Y's are also called range or outputs. Now, I had a hard time learning this. I had a concussion in 9th grade, Algebra 1, when I learned this, and had the hardest time learning it. But what helped me keep it straight was I would say, why, cowboy, go out on the range? Later on, my son went to college, and he had an African teacher from Africa who said how you remember it is, and he would say this, with his lovely African accent, and he said, Simba. everything the light touches on the horizon is your domain. So this was Professor Quachi, and he would say, so the X is horizontal, and it is your domain if you're Simba, the Lion King. Okay, so that's how we can remember those. Now, so we draw our line. These are the inputs, those are the outputs. Okay, here's another way you can draw a line. Sometimes you don't have an X, a Y, and an as equals. For example, we could do Y equals -1. How you do this, you go just to Y to -1 and you put a dot. And then I say to myself, no matter what. Meaning, because, and it means no matter what X is. X can go up or X can go down, but Y equals -1. We can also do an X one. X equals 3. So you go to X equals 3, 1, 2, 3, put a dot, and say no matter what, Y can go up or Y can go down, but X equals 3. So sometimes you graph these things that don't have an X and a Y, but we're going to learn how to do it if it has an X and Y and make this if-then chart. So that's another thing. This is if and that one is then, or it's domain and range, inputs and outputs are X and Y. They're all the same thing. And we're going to learn how to make these lines. Now, certain ones of these lines get a special name called function. They're the special ones. To be a function, it has to have no repeats in the inputs or in the domain or in the X. So I don't have any repeats, so it's looking good for my black line that it's a function. It will also pass what is called the pencil test, but I'm going to use a ruler. You take your pencil and you make it go straight up vertical on one side of your graph. And as you go over, it only crosses the line at one point at a time. So as I go over this black line, it only passes at one point at a time. So this equation, which was this one, that one right there, is a function. So it can be written a special way. And instead of writing a Y, you write F, parentheses with X in it, and that's read F of X. So it is a function. It's special. Let's try our Y equals 1, our red line. Is it a function? Yes, it only touched my ruler at one place at a time. So this one is also special. Yay, it's a function. Now let's look at F of X. I go along, this is the green one, it's touching all of it at the same time. So it is not a function. Not a function. It failed the pencil test. The book calls it the vertical line test. All right, so let's talk about how you graph these points. Okay, so here, how the book listed them was like this. Remember, they could be listed like this or like that, but I put them like this. I like them in the if-then chart, in the XY chart. So now we're going to graph them, okay? And I think I'll do that in green. All right, so my first point is -1, 1. So for X, this one, I go to -1. For Y, I go to 1 and put a point. Next, X is 2, 1, 2. Y is 0, put a point. Next, X is 3, 1, 2, 3. Y is 1, put a point. Next, I go to X is 3, 1, 2, 3. Y is 2, and put a point. And then I go to X is 4, Y is 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I almost don't have enough room, and I went to the wrong place. And put a point. And is this a line? No, that's kind of crazy looking, isn't it? We could kind of connect them like that. Okay, so is it a function? Let's look and see. Doing okay so far. Do you see how it's straight up and down right there? So this is not a function. Is it a function? No, not a function. And another way that we can tell it failed is, remember, no repeats in the inputs. And do you see right there repeats? So it is not a function. All right, if this is confusing, Do not worry about it. Just try to kind of understand it. This is one of those things that the more you do it, it'll start making sense. And I promise it will. By the end, you'll be like, oh yeah, this is easy. All right, come back and we'll learn more about equations and functions. Math is great.